Hey, welcome everybody to Veterans Rant, Rattle, and Roll, the little podcast, video cast where we get to talk to fellow veterans about their time in service, something that makes them crazy, something that made them laugh till they cried, and of course, how they did. Today I'm talking to retired Sergeant First Class Gary Jackson. Gary, how you doing?
Pretty good, brother.
So I hear you're living out there in Lake of the Ozarks.
Oh, yeah, living the dream down here at the lake.
So is it like Saddam's palace on the edge of the Euphrates?
Not quite as glorious, but I'll take this any day.
Cool. So why don't you tell the people watching the video, tell us about you. How'd you start? Rattle that saber. Tell us about your career.
Let's see. I graduated high school in May of 90. Had no expectations of going to college at all.
Wait, you're old.
Yeah. Somebody's got to do it. It was right when Desert Storm was kicking off, and went and talked to the Army recruiter, and he had me. He showed me some videos of things blowing up, people jumping out of airplanes, rappelling out of helicopters. I said, sign me up. Went in originally as a 13 Bravo, but when you're working in the artillery battalion, once the gun lines are full, you fill all the ash and trash jobs. Worked basically ammo, POL, was a driver in the 5th platoon for first 5 years of my career. Stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Loved the Army. Loved Fort Campbell. One of the funniest things, though, when I'd been at Fort Campbell for about a year and a half, came down on orders to go to Germany, and I did not want to go to Germany.
So, you don't like German beer?
I'd never been anywhere but Fort Campbell. All I knew was Fort Campbell. That was it. I literally went to my boss and I told him I don't want to go to Germany. And you're like, well, you got to go. And I'm like, well, kick me out of the Army then, because I don't want to go to freaking Germany.
Didn't anybody ever tell you can't tell the Army no?
Well, I found that out.
I bet you did.
But a guy by the name of Terry Hoffpower, rest in peace, brother. He was my chief at the time. Found out, well, we'll get into that later. He came to me, he told me, he said, go to Germany. He said, go to Germany, do your time over there. If you don't like it, get out of the Army then. He said, but go to Germany. He said, never base your Army career. And this stuck with me for the entire 20 years. And I passed this advice down to all my soldiers. I said, you never base your Army career off the first duty station you're at.
Amen.
You never do. There's two types of duty stations in the Army. The best duty station and the worst duty station.
The one you just left and the one you're going to.
That's exactly right. Yes, it is. So I told him, I said, all right, I'll go to Germany. I went to Germany in January of 93. Best thing I ever did in my life. I went for 2.5 years. Had a blast. Had the time of my life. We were in Winter Grafenwehr in January of 1995. My commander comes up to me. He says, hey, it's time for you to pack your shit and go back to Schweinfurt. He says, it's time for you to start ACAPing and ETSing. And I looked at him and I'm like, to do what? He said, your time's up. It's time to go home. It's like, what if I don't want to go home? He said, what do you mean? He said, what do you mean? I said, I don't want to get out of the Army. I'm having fun. He says, you want to stay in? I'm like, well, yeah. He says, well, let's go talk to retention. All right. Went down, talked to retention, got a bonus, and I got to pick where I wanted to get stationed.
So you're saying the Army was lacking some bald guys and they gave you some money to stay?
Yeah.
All right.
Some tall, bald guys, and they said, we're going to pay you extra money to stay here. So I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, went through my first marriage. My daughter was born there. Decided then to change my MOS to 13 Fox because as a Bravo, I'd been in the Army now 6 years, had never even been on a gun. Made my E5, and they're like, okay, we're going to go put you on the gun now.
Are you telling me you never, ever pulled string, make boom, got banana?
After AIT, never did it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I said, no, I don't want to. I said, I want to be able to go to a job where, as an NCO, I at least know my job to where I can train my soldiers. You know,
In woods
so
like right behind me here. You know,
that's it.
I'm like 10 minutes right outside AP Hill right now in Virginia.
Oh man, and it looks beautiful there, brother. So I reclassed to 13 Fox, and I had worked with some pisters throughout my first few years in the Army, so I knew a little bit about it. Went down to AIT at Fort Sill again, and I knew a couple of the instructors down there. And I went down as an E5, so they kind of took me under their wing. And on the weekends and at night, I was a non-IET, so I did my own thing after class. So on the night, at night, and during the weekends, I was going with the instructors, and they were giving me that extra, hey, you need to learn this, you need to know this. So that way, when I got out of there,
because they knew you were slow.
Well, that too. They said, "Oh my God, he was a Bravo. We need extra time with this guy."
Right? What? Wait, what?
So yeah. So after that, it was best thing I ever did. You know, loved my job, loved what I did, and
awesome.
As they say, the rest is history from there.
Hey, how many times did you deploy?
Oh shit! Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4 to the Middle East. Did a deployment. I mean, you want to call deployments out to NTC? You call
no, not training.
You talking like, okay, 4 to the Middle East.
Awesome. All Iraq, or did you see Afghanistan or somewhere else?
Afghanistan, Iraq twice, and then I did a peacekeeping deployment in 99, 2000 to Kuwait for intrinsic action.
Now, you and I met, let's see, 2003, May,
Baghdad. April, May of 03 at the amusement park in Baghdad.
Right, because we did that chicken barbecue thing.
Chicken and lamb barbecue for Easter.
And we went from there to Mosul together.
Yep.
Good old Camp Zed, Mosul.
Camp Zed. And we were there. Well, you left in July of 03.
Yeah, I left in July, went to Kuwait, found my unit from 431 10th Mountain, and turned around the very next day, went back to Baghdad.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, I'll tell you, that's the one thing that I miss with the Army.
What's that?
Is perfect example, you and I. We met, had never known each other, didn't even know each other existed before we met that day at the amusement park in Baghdad.
We're talking 17 years ago, brother.
Yeah. And the day we met, it was as if we'd known each other our whole lives. I mean, we started talking and doing things and started talking tattoos and Harley Davidsons and all these other things.
What are you talking about? Yeah. Who's got tattoos?
What?
I see you just bought a new Harley.
Yes, I did.
Now, wait a minute. When I met you, you never had one. So what's going on with that, buddy?
Yeah, when we met, I never even had the Harley. I retired in February of 2011. It was my 20 years. I went home and I told myself, for my retirement present, I wanted to buy a Harley. So I bought an 07 Heritage Softail Classic. Rode it for a year. And had it for a year, because in Illinois, you just can't ride them year round. So in the 6 months roughly that I had that bike out, that I was riding it, I put over 12,000 miles on it.
Those are rookie numbers. You got to turn those numbers up.
Well, so
I'm just talking smack, dude. Trust me.
I was, oh yeah.
I was deployed so much. I had 3-year-olds that had 5,000 miles on them. Who am I talking?
Hey, for a guy that had never rode before and you ride 6 months on a Heritage.
Right. That's why your hair never grew back.
Yeah, exactly. So at the time I was married, told the wife, I said, you know, for as much as we're riding, I need something more comfortable.
Sure.
May of 2012, I went and I bought my first Ultra. Had it for 3 years. It was an 09 Ultra. Had it for 3 years, and I put 36,000 miles on it.
Nice. Let's kick back to the Army. Tell me something in that. How long exactly were you in?
20 years and 9 days.
Isn't it funny how the orders always tell you exactly how long you're in? Mine said 22 years, 7 months, 21 days. I'm like, what, 4 hours and 9 minutes? I mean, who's counting?
Right.
Well, the freaking Army's counting. Anyway,
Yeah.
in that 20 years, tell me something that just go ahead, rant a little bit. Tell me something that just made you want to pull your hair out or pull somebody else's hair out in your case.
Honestly, and I know this is going to sound cliche, it was the tedious bullshit. And I don't mean to be X-rated and all that with the cussing and all that, but it was just at first when I first got in and I wasn't used to it.
Yeah.
It was the, you know, but looking back on it, it's the whole saluting, you know, making sure you ain't got nothing in putting your hands in your pocket. Simple little things like that, you know. Hands in your pocket.
They give us 23 pockets. You can't put your hands in them.
Well, and it's the things you don't think about. You know, you're carrying around notebooks and pens and paper and all this crap, but you can't have anything looking like you got 80 pounds of crap in your pockets. Well, what am I supposed to do with it? Right. You know, it was those type of things. But, I mean, I guess for me, over time, from when I first went in January 91 to when I retired.
91.
The way it became more political.
Yeah.
I mean, it got to the point when I retired, I was seeing guys were getting promoted because of who they knew, not what they knew.
So what year did you retire?
I retired in 2011.
Wow, 5 years before me. And I'm older than you. That's all we're going to say.
You're white.
Cool. So,
but you're like a fine wine, though, brother. You just get better with years.
I'm like a port. I'm full of it and tastes like whiskey.
There you go.
Or brandy, whatever that is. Anyway, cool. So, you know, you're like me. You got tired of the silly, goofy stuff. But, hey, tell me, let's roll on the floor. Tell me something. Okay. Tell me a story. You tell me one of those no crap, there I was stories.
So no kidding, there we were. In Iraq, in Karbala, Iraq, in 2003, doing the air assault into Karbala. Day kicks off. We were already.
Isn't that the city that like third ID rolled by or fourth ID or somebody rolled by and called it clear, and later on y'all were stacking?
Yeah.
All right.
This would be the one. But we were already pretty much black on water before we ever even got on the birds to fly into Karbala because birds were late. Imagine that. So we air saw in. Come to find out, the birds dropped us 3 clicks from the original DZ where they were supposed to drop us
3,000 meters to the wrong direction.
Oh, wait. And it was also right in the middle of the minefield also. So,
you know, anybody who's watching this right now who hasn't been in the military is trying to figure out the humor here.
Well, you're out in the middle of the wide open desert, nothing to hide behind.
Right.
Just walking along. Well, I had a brand new cherry lieutenant at the time. I mean, he graduated OBC.
Was he a ring knocker?
No.
Okay.
He was not academy. He was one of my best friends still to this day. He got to us in January of 03. We deployed in March of 03.
Wow.
So he's a field fire support officer in an artillery unit, but now we are attached to an infantry battalion. When I met
3rd to 502nd,
I asked him, I said, sir, where'd you go to school? Well, I went to Marshall University. I'm like, where are you from, sir? He says, I'm from West by God, Virginia. So I got a boy from the hills, from West Virginia. I asked him, I said, what'd you go to school for? Went to school to be a minister. I'm like, oh, this is going to be a great match. So anyway, fast forward, we're in Iraq.
Gary Jackson's PL was a preacher.
There was.
Whoa. Now that's funny.
He didn't smoke, drink, cuss, nothing when I met him. Now he does all of the above.
Score one for the artillery.
There you go. Score one for the bald guy.
That's funny, right?
And so we're walking into Karbala, and all of a sudden I hear, Sergeant Jackson. And I'm like, oh my God, it's his voice. Sergeant Jackson. I turn around and he says, can you put this back on my radio? His antenna wasn't properly PCC'd and PCI'd before he left. So he's just got his antenna flopping in. And this is at the same time he's supposed to be calling in the mortar fires into the city that were the
Let me
prep
get this
fires.
straight. The artillery platoon leader who's supposed to call in the cover fire has broke his radio.
Yeah, pretty much.
Which war are we in again? Because that's all of them.
Exactly.
Ever since we got those walkie and talkies, we've been breaking antennas.
Right? And it wasn't even broke. He just didn't have it screwed on his radio all the way. But I mean, I'll tell you honestly, the rolling on the floor it could be anything from that to 3 guys just sitting around BSing in the bunks at Camp Zed when you ain't got nothing else to do.
Right.
It's the brotherhood.
Factory.
Yeah. It was that's the one thing I think I've had the hardest time with, because I've been retired now about 9.5 years.
Right, 9 years.
I've moved about every 2 years still. Since I've been down here at the lake, this is probably the longest I've lived anywhere, because I have always felt like I haven't been able to find my niche in society.
Niche, is that like a niche?
I have a hard time trusting. I could count on one hand and have fingers left over the amount of people I trust out here outside the Army. I don't know. I guess it's that whole, the 20 years, brother. I didn't have to worry about anything when I was in the Army, as far as who you could trust, who you could talk to, anything, and that's the one thing that has gotten me. I don't know. That's my biggest hurdle that I've had since I've retired. I'm going to share a little story. I'm going to get off of the whole rant, rattle, roll for a minute.
Okay.
We talked about this helping the 22 get down to 21.
Right. What's your message?
Get it down to 20. I'm going to tell you guys something. In February of 2014, I was sitting in my garage in La Harpe, Illinois, at my bar in my garage with a loaded gun ready to go. I was done. I was sick of life. I was sick of everything. And I was at the step before it's all done. That's how close I was. I have been that low since I've retired from the Army. It's a mixture of PTSD, depression, loneliness, all of the above, everything that you go through. And it's a simple phone call from a friend, a brother, just to say, hey, was thinking about you. Hope everything's going all right. that text message is the only reason I'm here today.
Right.
It's
Part of the reason we
because-
want to do this, Gary, and I'm so glad you came on here, is because we want to knock the 22 brothers and sisters every day who are stepping out of the big bird without their static line hooked up, trying to check their way
Exactly.
out. We want to knock that down to 21, 20, and get it all the way down to none, because we're all connected.
Yes.
We all went through something. Call us.
Yes. I tell everybody out there, you know, you can find me on Facebook. If you don't find me on something, I mean, I'll give you my number. If I don't know how we're doing this, if you want to put phone numbers out there or what, but I'm all about it. You know, it's just like you said, we're all in this together, because we may not have chewed the same fat and kicked the same dirt, but we've been in the same situations as everybody on here.
Right. No, absolutely.
And-
That's the whole thing.
And somebody out here somewhere right now is going through what I've been through. I've been there, I've done it. And it took me from that lowest of lows to 2 years ago before I was finally able to say, I am at peace, I'm happy, and I like my life.
Right. And if you're having troubles out there and you're listening to Gary and me and you're watching us on Facebook, you know, you can always send out a message to us. You can always go ahead and you can make a phone call through Facebook. Pick up that phone and call. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Gary don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. We don't care. Reach out to us, brothers and sisters, because I want to hear your stories. I want you to get mad. I want you to rant about something. I want you to feel better. I want you to rattle that saber and tell us how you served. And then I want you to end that day with the rolling on the floor laughing. No crap, there I was.
No shit, there we were.
Right. No more of this 22 checking out every day.
No.
Gary, I can't thank you enough for being the first one to jump on here with me.
Oh, it was my pleasure, brother. I'm glad we're doing this. And is like you said, you know, I don't care if it's 1 in the morning, 3 in the morning. I don't care. My phone is by me all the time. It never shuts off. Call me, message me, do something. I'm always here.
Okay, once again, you've been listening to and watching the Veterans Rant, Rattle, and Roll with Sergeant First Class retired Gary Jackson, who lives out there at the Lake of the Ozarks. I'm really tired of his pictures from his deck. I'm just saying, I want to remember him as the guy sitting on a bench full of soap in Missoula.
That's
On
right.
the back of a Harley in Colorado Springs that day you came out went for a ride. But again,
There
Gary,
you go.
appreciate you, brother. And we'll talk again
brother.
soon, huh?
Yes, sir. Be safe, brother.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.